Welcome to Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of bbcon 2012 Blackbaud Conference. We're outside Washington, D.C. With me now is Jana Eggers. Jana is Senior Vice President of Products and Marketing for Blackbaud. Jana, thanks for taking time during a very busy day.
Tony, thanks for you for coming here and joining us.
Oh, it's a big pleasure. I hope I'll be with you again next year. We've already talked with Melanie about that.
Perfect.
You did the keynote, so why don't you introduce listeners who are going to be listening after the conference to what they should look forward, what they missed, and what they might look forward to in 2013.
So what I talked about is our product vision and what we accomplished in the last year. So big things that we brought to our customer base is the Razor's Edge mobile application, which is very exciting. So people can access their Razor's Edge data on their mobile phone, which is big. We have about 13,000 Razor's Edge customers, so that's a nice application that, by the way, they got for free as part of their regular maintenance. And so that was our biggest announcement, but we have mobile all across. Mobile was a big theme for us in this past year, and delivered across a lot of our platforms. Actually, most of them had some kind of mobile update, so people could access or provide websites, for example, for the nonprofits could. And we talked about updates to our Blackbaud CRM product, to our Luminate CRM product.
Now on Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio, we have Jargon Jail.
Sorry.
I'd hate to put one of the senior VPs in Jargon Jail because you have a busy day today. For listeners who may not know, CRM is...
Well, for the general markets, it's usually called customer relationship management. For nonprofit, we talk about it as constituent relationship management.
And I've had guests on the show talking about CRM and some of the cloud applications, including Blackbaud. But just for listeners who may not have heard those shows, constituent relationship management. Now, you spend a lot of time thinking about technology and obviously its use for charities. What do you see the future of what's coming for charities around technology generally?
So there's, one of those, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So we're always dealing with new things in technology. We have lots going on, obviously, with social. I mentioned mobile and the push there. People have just started adjusting to email, and now you got email on a smaller device.
And email with video, with embedded video?
Embedded video, which we couldn't even do a couple of years ago, right? So there's a lot of that changing. However, video has been around for a while. So now you have to think about, well, great, we have a lot of video product. We have, video content, which is exciting and does tell their story even more than you used to be able to. People had to read the text. Now they get to see it and see what's happening with their mission. So it's really rich content. Now, how do you adjust it to a new format? And what's great is with tablets, we're getting away from the tiny little handheld, right? And the tablets, at least, are this big, so you can do a lot more with the media there.
Now, you're talking to someone who still has an iPhone 3GS. I skipped the 4. I didn't get an iPad, but I'm going to buy a 5. So some of us are still in the dark ages were only 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago. But yes, because the content's getting richer, the devices are getting higher resolution, right?
Exactly.
Easier to view our videos now, even either a bigger phone or a tablet.
And the iPhone 3 is still a great phone.
Oh, you're just trying to make me feel good. No, I know.
No, it is. When you compare that to the audio Vox that I had not even 10 years ago.
Right. And that was like a brick, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, you could start to build the side of a building with those. Now you are a triathlete, an Ironman. So remind people. I know that it's a swim and a bike and a run. But tell people what the distances are for each of those. It's pretty impressive.
Have to bring that up.
Yeah, no, because we're going to talk about that and leadership. Go ahead.
It's a 2.4 mile swim. It's a 112 mile bike ride, and it's a marathon, which is a 26.2 mile run.
And you can take a nap in between those three? between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3?
You could do that, but you may not finish in the 17 hours that you have to finish in.
17 hours, okay.
You have 17 hours from 7 in the morning until midnight.
And how many, these are also called Ironman competitions, same thing.
Ironman is a brand, and
is a brand.
so that's an iron distance, and they've branded it Ironman.
Okay, so let's stick with the generic, the triathlete, the triathlon. How many of those have you done?
For that iron distance triathlon, I've done 5.
Okay. What's the feeling between the bike and the run? Now, you've swam, you've biked 116 miles? 112 miles. You're about to run 26.2 miles. What is the feeling as you're dismounting the bike and thinking, oh, I just have a marathon left? What are you thinking? What is the thought at that transition moment between biking and running?
People always ask that because they say,
I thought my questions were insightful.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My questions are generic, ordinary. People always ask.
Actually, you asked it in a different way, I will say, but people always say, how can you run a marathon after doing that?
Okay.
And that's different. And what I'd say is, you're at that point, I find the marathon easier to run than just a marathon alone. And I know it sounds strange, but you're kind of out of your mind at that point, because you're somewhere between 6 and 8 hours of working out,
high endurance exercise,
and
right.
You can't really think, so you think, wow, I get to run a marathon if I can just get off this bike. I'll go do that. Right? But it's only because your mind isn't actually working correctly.
Okay, so there's some euphoria. Obviously endorphins are way in overload. Okay, now you spend a lot of time thinking about leadership in technology. I know you speak a fair amount on leadership. How do you think your triathlete work and preparation, the discipline involved in that, affects your thoughts about leadership?
Well, one thing is I get a lot of thinking time that I think other people don't. I go out and go for long runs.
And thinking time is important?
That's good thinking time, right? It allows you to take a step back. You don't have, I don't have the distraction of the phone or anything else. I have just me out there running and time to think. So I do think that's one thing that just the amount of time. I actually made the decision to join Blackbaud while I was doing Ironman Wisconsin.
Well, you were in the, not training for it, but you were in the
while I was in the event.
Competition?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I told Mark, I said, I'm going to go do an Ironman this weekend, and I'll make the decision while I'm doing it.
Mark is your...
Mark Chardon, who's our CEO.
Oh, the CEO, okay.
Yes.
What about the discipline involved in training and discipline for leadership? You see overlap there?
Yeah, it's one of those things when you show that you can do that, when you prove to yourself what you can do and what you're capable of, I think you have a little less fear. You feel like a stronger person, and that obviously, I can do that. You're not afraid of what could happen. And you know that you can overcome a lot, and there's a lot with leadership that you can't control everything, right? And that's the same with Ironman. You can't control everything. I was doing great. The last one that I did was in Germany, and the bike, I was having my best swim and bike. So excited, felt great, got off the bike, started on the run, and a downpour happened, and it was freezing, and it just completely changed my race. And I went from it being my best time to thinking, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to finish.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with leadership, right? It's like everything's going great, and then something that, I can't control the weather. Something happens that another competitor does something, something changes in the industry, and you can't control it. And so to have that confidence of, whatever comes my way, I can handle it and I can figure it out, and I've done it. So courage, perseverance, sounds like what we're talking about. Yeah. Okay. And confidence. Confidence. Now that leads me to Spreadshirt. You were CEO of Spreadshirt. Yeah. Why don't you acquaint listeners with what Spreadshirt was, and then I'll follow. Go ahead. Sure. Spreadshirt is a customized apparel company, but in particular, we're a place where people can create their own shirts and sell them. So kind of think of it as eBay, like people had goods that they were selling on a platform. So we were a technology platform, but what would happen is they could create them virtually, and then we would produce them and sell them. So imagine if somebody could go in and, if you understand eBay, somebody could go in and say, well, I have a chair, but I don't really have it. I just make it and create it online. Then we would actually produce that, and you could sell it.
Okay, and one of the shirts had a Madeleine Albright quote about confidence. Do you remember that? Do you remember what I'm referring to?
Yes, I do, but I can't remember exactly.
Okay, it was something. It was be confident, but not. It wasn't cocky, but it was something like cocky. I mean,
yeah, it's be confident but not sure. And
confident, but not, something like
it's
that, right.
something along that lines. And the point there is, that you are confident what you can do, but you also have to listen to others, right? You also have to see the different perspective because you don't know everything. And so, be confident but not certain. That's what it is.
Excellent. I knew it was the C word.
It's be confident but not certain.
Right.
Yes.
And listening is important. So let's talk about some leadership skills. What's your advice around listening to the people who are working with you, for you?
I actually have, one of those signs that looks like a street sign, and it says what people need is a good listening to.
This is something on your desk?
Yes.
What people need is a good listening to.
Is a good listening to.
Yeah, so
and
say a little more.
Customers are that way. Your employees are that way. Make sure that you're listening. One of the things that I read once that I oftentimes remember is it says, if you're listening to respond, you're not listening.
You're listening to respond. Sure.
You're not listening, right? Because you're starting to sit there and think, okay, well, I'm halfway through what they say and I'm already thinking about my response and I miss what they're really saying. So it's this idea that you just sit there and listen and be okay if there's a pause, right? And be okay with, I'm not really sure, but I really want to think about that a little bit more. Let me get back to you.
Yeah.
Or just have the pause there and say, hey, let me think about that for a second. I really want to understand. So if you're already starting to process that and change how you're thinking based on what they're saying, you're missing what they're saying.
It reminds me of a scene in Pulp Fiction. Uma Thurman is talking to John Travolta. And this might be an outtake. I'm not sure if it made it in the movie, but she asks him, she's interviewing him before he takes her out, because her husband, his boss, is away, and she asks him, do you actually talk to people, or do you wait to talk? Are you actually listening to people, or are you waiting to talk?
Yeah.
He says, I have to admit, I wait to talk, but I'm working on it.
That's exactly it. It's the same exact thing. So I'm glad I'll reference Pulp Fiction because that's cooler.
Yeah, cool. But I don't know if it made it in. So but I have the outtake DVD if you want to borrow it.
Okay.
Let's talk a little more. I like the topic of leadership. You're a senior person at Blackbaud. You've been CEO, or you were CEO of Sweatshirt. And what other advice do you have for people who are leading small and mid-sized charities?
So, you covered listening, which is really critical.
Sure.
I'd also say I have another T-shirt that says "Facts are good." Right?
All right.
We often forget that. We get caught up in the emotion of what's going on. It's like always remember, especially as a leader, to back up and think about, well, what facts do I have to support that? Am I leading by emotion, or is there really the data behind it? So it's data is important and facts are good. Okay. So,
is there special advice you have for people who are leaders in technology, as you are, Senior Vice President of Technology and Marketing? What about, does technology have special leadership challenges?
I'm not sure that technology leadership is different from
You're still leading
anything.
people, right?
It's still people. And maybe I'm naive in that, but I haven't found technology to be that different.
Okay. How about for the small and mid-sized charity that's thinking of purchasing technology, the leader thinking of purchasing technology? What's your advice about what goes into that important decision? Again, thinking of the audience, which is small and mid-sized charities, not talking to the biggest, maybe universities or hospitals, but good size, but still small and mid.
Thank you for asking that, because it's really important, and I'll say a couple of things.
I finally got a good question in.
No, I like several.
Not like those passé questions that you've heard a million times about the Iron Man. Okay.
No, what people don't prepare for is the change that technology is going to entail. So if you're just buying a technology and hoping that it's only going to work the way that you work, you're losing out. You know, a lot of the technology is built with knowing all of these nonprofits, right? So our technology, for example, gets the benefit of 27,000 nonprofits.
Yes.
And so if you're only trying to get it to work exactly the way that you work, you're going to lose out on the advantages of working with somebody who works with a lot of nonprofits and the best practices that come along with that. Right, so make sure.
Flexibility. We were talking about flexibility, but still, the technology needs to support you, but you need to be able to adapt as well. Is that what you're saying?
And really think about, maybe your processes need to be in place that way, but a lot of times you can modify them, not just for the technology, but because there's a good reason the technology is built that way, not just because it was a limitation in the technology. The technology was built that way because it really works well for nonprofits, right?
Yeah.
So being willing to kind of back up and say, are we just doing this because we've always done it that way? Are we doing it because there's really a reason behind it to do it that way? So that's one thing, is that I would always back up and kind of push ourselves to make sure that we're not just doing it because that's what we're comfortable with.
Okay.
You know, change is good. Another thing that I'd say is keep up with the technology, and by that I mean a lot of people, especially you talked about cloud-based applications, the technology is updated for us, right? So we don't have to go in and choose to read the release notes and all of that. It's there. So what happens is that people stay where they implemented, right? So they just use what they know, and they don't push themselves to go out because they don't have to go through a big change process to go in and upgrade like we used to have to back in the day. So I would say really stay current with that technology, because there's reason, you know, we put this stuff in there because we're learning from people, there's new things to take advantage of, you know, and you should be using them. And it may be simple things like, you know, query list. If you didn't learn about query lists that we added to the Razor's Edge in the last release, well, you're probably spending more time than you need to in the software, and we can make something really much faster for you. So, and because you didn't take that 3 minutes to read the release notes or to watch the release video, because we do them by video now, as we were talking about, you know, you're missing out on 30 minutes a week because you didn't take that 3 minutes. So people don't realize, you know, if you want to go back, it's the 7 habits sharpening your saw. Make sure that you're sharpening. Coming to bbcon is a way of sharpening your saw, right? And make sure that you're not trying to saw that tree with that dull blade, right? As you're going in, you're learning, you're saying, oh, wow, this is going to be a benefit to my organization. Even though it feels like 3 minutes now and I don't know what I'm going to get out of it, you're going to get something out of it. So you got to take that leap of faith. That goes back to leadership. Those leaps of faith.
Some courage, some flexibility. Yeah.
Exactly.
Listen to your technology provider. They may know something that can help you.
Yeah.
And of course, you mentioned cloud-based. Of course, the the Blackbaud product that I'm most familiar with, cloud-based, is eTapestry. That's your offering.
And we also, the Razor's Edge is offered in the cloud too. So we have that as well. So most of our products are available in a cloud-based solution, and some of it's our cloud, some of it's someone else's cloud. It's just, but to the customer, it's the same thing.
Okay. Let's spend a couple minutes. I'm really interested in what it is that moves you about your work. What do you love about the intersection of technology, marketing, leadership?
I see them out here. They're our customers.
Okay.
Brandy's out there laughing. She's not listening to me, though. There she is. See?
Brandy's not your only customer.
No. But she's the one that's standing right here. Okay. So we've got 27,000 organizations. She's from one of them.
Right.
But it's people like her that are very, very encouraging and invigorating to work with. You know, some of the folks said, gosh, that was really hard to stand up there in front of all those people at the keynote and take live questions. You know, why did you do that? And it's like, I love the questions. I want to know what they're thinking. If I'm just standing up there talking, I'm not getting feedback. And to me, questions are feedback, right? Questions are, wow, where you aren't clear on something, and you know, all of that. And so you learn from the questions people ask. I mean, I love that. Whenever I'm in an interview, maybe this is another leadership tip, whenever I'm in an interview, interviewing someone for a job, I always tell, well, what questions do you have? right? Because you learn a lot about how somebody's thinking by their questions, and that's what I get. And now we have, this room of 2,500 customers that are here that stop me in the hallway. That's why I was a little late coming to you, because I get stopped just in the 10 yards from the restroom by 4 different people with questions or comments or feedback, and I get to listen and learn that.
And what do you love that you're doing for them? What are you hearing that they're thrilled about that helps you wake up every morning?
Yeah, well, it's one of the customers stood up during the keynote and said, "I don't have a question, I have a compliment. You told us what you were going to do last year, and you delivered it." And I just want to say thanks. So when the customer sees something like the Razor's Edge Mobile or the new versions of CRM or what we've released in Luminate, and they say that, well, here, let me put it another way. When the customer stands up and says, "That's my feature," and they were part of developing that, that's when you feel really great.
Okay.
Right?
Excellent. We're going to leave it there. All right, Jana Eggers, Senior Vice President of Products and Marketing for Blackbaud. And Jana, I want to thank you very much for being a guest on a busy day. Thank you.
Thank you, and especially for all the great questions.
Oh, yeah. I love that. Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of bbcon 2012. We're outside Washington, D.C. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.